In this video, I'm going to go over Adobe Premiere track controls. Shift and the plus key expand all tracks. Shift and the minus key contract all tracks. Control and the plus key expand all video tracks. Control and the minus key contract all video tracks. Alt and the plus key expand all audio tracks. Alt and the minus key contract all audio tracks. Alt and scroll over a track expand and contracts that track only. Shift and scroll over a video track expands and contracts all video tracks. Shift and scroll over audio track area expands and contracts all audio tracks. Control and scroll over video track area scrolls up and down the video tracks. Control and scroll over the audio track area scrolls up and down the audio tracks. Source target column and track targeting column. The sync lock, track lock, mute track, solo track, and voice over icons. The shift plus source targeting and track targeting selects and deselects all targeting. Shift and sync lock, track lock, mute track, solo track selects and deselects all. Okay, we're going to go over some of the track controls, and when you have an edit that's got lots of tracks and you want to be able to see all the audio tracks and all the video tracks, an easy way to do this is to hit the shift and plus key. It makes all the audio and video tracks expand, and then the shift minus key minuses them all. So it's really actually the hyphen key and equal key, but most people think of it as the minus and plus, which are the shift, hyphen, and equal key. So you can also use another modifier called the control key. So control plus expands all the video tracks, and control minus contracts all the video tracks. And then alt plus expands all the audio tracks, and alt minus contracts all the audio tracks. Okay, some more track height controls using the scroll key. We're going to start off by using the alt key. So when you hit the alt key over a track, point the pointer over that track you want to change the height, and you scroll and it changes the track height of that one track. So whether it's an audio track or a video track, it changes the height of that one track. I'll go back and I'll hit shift minus and make them all small again. Now the next one we have is the shift and scroll. So we hit shift and scroll, be over here on the video track. So you hit shift and scroll, and it expands or contracts all the video. Now if I bring my pointer down to the audio, again shift, it expands or contracts all the audio tracks. Now the last one we have is the control key and scroll. So let's expand up this all the way. So once I have the tracks expanded to where I can't see all the tracks either at audio or video, if I hit the control key and now I scroll, now I can scroll up and down all the tracks because they're so large you can't see them all. The control key lets you see all of the tracks, whether it's in audio or in video. It lets you scroll. You just bring the pointer to either the audio or the video, and it lets you scroll. I'm going to go over source targeting and track targeting over here. So this where you see the V1 and A1 here, when you're working with the source window and you've created an in out in your source window and you want to take a piece of this video and put it into your timeline, you have to tell Premiere where you want it to go, what tracks you want it to go on. So if I want this piece of video right here to go on the V3 video track and I want the audio to go on the A5 track, I just move my playhead to where I want it to go, and then I hit overwrite edit, and then it adds it to those tracks. If I don't tell this targeting over here where to go, the default for it is to go for V1 to go to V1 and A1 to go to A1. And if I did that, it would overwrite on existing tracks in my timeline, and I don't want to do that. Hit Control Z to bring that back. So whether I'm doing an insert edit or an overwrite edit, either with the comma or the period, you have to tell Premiere where you want those tracks to go. So that's basically the source tracking. Now we have track targeting. What track targeting does is when you're navigating around on your timeline, and I commonly just use my up and down arrow, sometimes if I'm working on this, let's say I'm working on this A3 track, I don't want to have to stop at every one of these edit points on track V1. So I could turn off track targeting on everything except for A3. Turn off all of these and work on A3. So that way when I hit my up and down arrow key, I'm only going to the endpoints on the edit points on track 3. That's where track targeting is really important. Mostly it's just for navigating around in the timeline. You have to tell which track that you're working on. Okay, two other tools that are used that are here in this area are the sync locks and the track lock tools. Now you can either select them all by hitting shift and selecting. It selects all the audio or all the video. And the same with the sync locks, you can select them all at the same time. Now where this comes in handy is if I'm going to do an insert edit and I want to insert this edit from the source monitor at the timeline in this track on V1 and A2, but I don't want to mess with my music track at the bottom. I want to do an insert edit, which will create a gap. It'll basically push the timeline down, but I don't want to create a gap here in my music track. So what I can do here is I can turn on sync lock on my music track right here. And then all I have to do is hit insert edit here. And then it inserts that piece of video and audio right here into V1 and A2, but it leaves the audio track alone because sync lock was turned off. Now it ended up pushing all these clips down over that, but I'd have to obviously extend my music track to the end of the clip here. Control Z, we'll go back. Another way to do this is to use the track locking. So let's turn sync lock back off again, and I could just lock the track. By locking the track, it basically does the same thing in this case, but I can't edit that track. I'd have to turn the track locking on and off. So again, I could do an insert edit here, and I would insert that edit in there, and it left the bottom track alone again, and inserted that clip, and did not affect my music track at the bottom. So those are the two ways that I use Control Z. The two ways that I use either sync lock or track lock. Basically, I use track lock a lot when I want to make an edit to some tracks above or below, and I have a track that I want to make sure it does not get changed. So I make sure we don't have any gaps in my timeline, or if it doesn't overwrite on a track that I don't want it to. So it's really important to use your source tracking, your track targeting well, and then use your track locks and your sync locks in conjunction with that. Now, the other tools that are in here, of course, is that you can mute a track and you could solo a track in here. The microphone is for doing voiceover, so I could start a voiceover on that track. The important thing when doing a voiceover, you got to make sure that you have that track targeted. Let's say, for instance, I want to do it on this track right here. I'll make sure that track is targeted first, and then I can move up and down the timeline to where I want to create the voiceover. And then I could hit my voiceover right there, and it'll start at that point. If I don't have my track targeting on here, it will a lot of times go back to the beginning of that track. So I will do that, and I'll hit my record button here.
Social distancing for you. And
it's recording there, but it started there. So I hit stop. Okay, I got a little echo there. I'm going to delete that. So it's important when you're using the voiceover tool, make sure you have that track selected and targeted. And it's easy to make sure this is targeted, because a lot of times what I'll do is I'll hit a voiceover, and then I'll have to do it over and over again because, I keep screwing up. So the easiest thing to do is to have that track targeting on. So if, let's say, for instance, I want to go back to this clip every time, I turn off all the other track targeting. So that way it's easy to go back. If I hit a record right here, it'll start recording at the end of this track right here. It'll start recording.
Bam!
Hit stop. And let's say I don't like that edit. I'll zoom in here. I'll delete it. I'll delete that. But I want to go back to the beginning again. All you have to do is hit up arrow key, because that track is targeted. I go right back and start doing my voiceover edit again. Okay, one additional thing on source tracking and track targeting is that if I wanted to select or deselect all of them at once, I just hit the shift key and select in that area, and it deselects all the audio tracking. And if I do the same thing as shift and the V tracks, I will deselect all the video tracks, and I could do the same thing again, just shift and hold, and it selects them all. So that's an easy thing to do that. Now you can also do shift with your sync locks on both tracks. You can sync with your being able to visualize your video tracks. You can mute all, you hit shift and mute all your tracks at once, or you can shift and hit solo and solo all your tracks. So using the shift key in any of these manners either selects or deselects all of them at once. Well, thanks for watching this video on Adobe Premiere track controls. It's really just using a combination of Alt key, Shift key, and Control key and controlling your track heights, so it makes it easier to visualize your tracks while you're doing your editing. I also have some information on source targeting and track targeting and some of the other icons that you have in your track controls. Now, one of the other things I'm doing is I'm doing a little testing of some lab mics here. I have one Boya connected to my Rode Video Go, and then I have another Boya connected to one channel of my Zoom H1, and then on the other channel of my Zoom H1 I have connected to this JK mic. And I had that split. I just have a splitter in here so I could separate the two different channels, and then in post I split it so I have two different lav connections. Usually I do that with my wife and I. So just something I'm adding to this video. If you like stuff like this, I'm doing a lot of like YouTube and video editing stuff, please consider subscribing to the link down there. And if you want to see more of this Adobe Premiere tutorials that I'm doing, please check out this playlist down over here in this corner right there. So again, anyway, thanks very much, and we'll see you on the next video.